First contact. The sleek, silver ship sliced through the inky blackness of space, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. Inside, Zara stood before the observation window, her large, almond-shaped eyes reflecting the blue-green orb of Earth as it grew steadily larger. Nervous. A deep, resonant voice asked from behind her. Zara turned to face Captain Vex, her antennae twitching slightly, a telltale sign of her anxiety that she hadn't quite mastered hiding yet. A little, she admitted. It's my first solo mission after all. Vex's facial tentacles rippled in what Zara recognized as a reassuring smile. You've trained for this, Zara. Your skills in xenobiology are unmatched among your peers. The council chose you for a reason. Zara nodded, trying to draw confidence from her superior's words. She had indeed trained rigorously for this moment, years of studying Earth's languages, cultures, and biology. But no amount of simulation could truly prepare her for actual immersion in human society. Remember, Vex continued, your mission is purely observational. Gather data, experience their culture firsthand, but do not interfere or reveal yourself under any circumstances. The humans are not ready for official first contact. I understand, Captain, Zara replied, her voice firm despite the flutter of excitement and trepidation in her chest. As Earth filled more of the view screen, Zara retreated to her quarters to make final preparations. She stood before the full-length mirror, watching as her body shimmered and changed. Her blue-tinged skin darkened to a warm brown, her large eyes shrunk and rounded, and her antennae receded into her skull, replaced by flowing black hair. Within moments, a human woman stared back at her, the perfect disguise, indistinguishable from the planet's native inhabitants. Zara marveled at the transformation. The chameleonic abilities of her species had evolved over millennia of peaceful exploration, allowing them to study developing civilizations without detection. Now, those abilities would be put to their greatest test yet. A soft chime indicated that the ship had achieved geosynchronous orbit. It was time. Zara took a deep breath, grabbed her pack filled with Earth-appropriate clothing and supplies, and made her way to the teleportation chamber. Captain Vex was waiting for her. Remember your cover story, he said. You're a graduate student named Sarah Chen, studying cultural anthropology. Your documentation and background have all been inserted into their systems. Zara nodded, her heart racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I'm ready, Captain. Vex placed a hand on her shoulder. Good luck, Zara. May the stars guide your path. With a shimmer of energy, Zara felt herself dematerializing. There was a moment of disorientation, and then suddenly, she was standing in a small, dim alley in what her research told her was New York City. The sensory assault was immediate and overwhelming. A cacophony of sounds, vehicle engines, human voices, music blaring from somewhere nearby, assaulted her ears. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, some pleasant, others less so. And the energy of the city, the sheer vitality of millions of humans going about their lives, thrummed through her like an electric current. Zara took a moment to steady herself, then stepped out onto the bustling sidewalk. Humans of all shapes, sizes, and colors streamed past her, most lost in their own worlds, a few offering curious glances at the newcomer. Zara felt a thrill of excitement. She was doing it, she was among them, undetected. Following the directions in her memory, Zara made her way to the small apartment that had been arranged for her. As she walked, she marveled at the towering buildings, the flashing advertisements, the incredible variety of human fashion and expression. Her people had been right to choose Earth for deeper study. The creativity and diversity on display were truly remarkable. The apartment was small but functional, located in a bustling neighborhood filled with young professionals and students, the perfect cover for Sarah Chen. Zara spent the next few hours familiarizing herself with the living space and the various human technologies she would need to use to maintain her cover. As night fell, Zara decided to venture out again, eager to begin her observations in earnest. She found herself drawn to a nearby park, where humans gathered to enjoy the warm evening air. Couples strolled hand in hand, friends laughed together on benches, and lone individuals lost themselves in books or devices. Zara sat on an empty bench, pulling out a notebook to maintain her student cover while surreptitiously observing the humans around her. Their range of emotional expression fascinated her, from the exuberant laughter of children playing to the quiet intimacy of couples stealing kisses in the shadows. "Mind if I sit here?" a voice asked, startling Zara from her observations. She looked up to see a young man with kind eyes and an easy smile gesturing to the empty space beside her. "Oh, of course," she replied, remembering to smile back as humans often did in such interactions. "Thanks," he said, settling onto the bench. "I'm Jake, by the way." "Sarah," Zara responded, using her cover name smoothly. "Nice to meet you." "You too," Jake said. "Are you a student? I noticed you taking notes." Zara nodded, falling into the role she had practiced. "Yes, I'm a graduate student in cultural anthropology. Just observing people, you know." Jake's eyes lit up with interest. "That sounds fascinating. I've always been interested in how culture shapes human behavior. I'm a chemist myself, but I love reading about anthropology and sociology in my spare time." As they continued to talk, Zara found herself genuinely engaged. Jake was intelligent and curious, asking insightful questions about her supposed research and sharing his own knowledge of human society. She had to be careful not to reveal any gaps in her understanding, but the conversation flowed naturally. "So, what brought you to New York?" Jake asked after a while. Zara hesitated for just a moment before replying with her prepared backstory. "I'm here for a year-long research project, studying urban social dynamics. It's my first time in the city, actually." "Well, you picked a hell of a place for people watching," Jake laughed. "If you ever want a local's perspective, or just someone to show you around, let me know. My lab's not far from here." Zara felt a warmth in her chest at the offer. Was this the famous human friendliness she had read about? "That's very kind of you," she said. "I might take you up on that." As the night grew later, they exchanged contact information, Zara marveling internally at the primitive but charming custom of phone numbers, and Jake headed home. Zara remained in the park a while longer, processing the interaction. She had done it, her first extended conversation with a human, and she hadn't been detected. More than that, she had made what humans would call a friend. It was an auspicious start to her mission. As Zara finally made her way back to her apartment, her mind was buzzing with new observations and questions. The complexity of human social interactions, the subtle cues of body language and tone, the apparent ease with which they formed connections, it was all endlessly fascinating. She prepared her first mission report, encoding it for transmission back to the ship. As she detailed her initial observations and experiences, Zara felt a growing excitement. She was at the beginning of a grand adventure, one that would unlock the mysteries of this vibrant, chaotic, beautiful world. Little did Zara know that her encounter with Jake was just the first step on a path that would lead to discoveries, dangers, and decisions that would change not only her life, but the relationship between their two species forever. As she drifted off to sleep, lulled by the unfamiliar but oddly comforting sounds of the city, the wheels of fate were already in motion, drawing her towards a destiny neither she nor her superiors could have possibly imagined. Cultural immersion. Over the next few weeks, Zara threw herself into her mission with enthusiasm. Each day brought new discoveries about human culture, society, and behavior. She attended university lectures to maintain her cover, marveling at the breadth of human knowledge and the passion with which professors and students alike pursued understanding. One sunny afternoon, Zara found herself in a bustling coffee shop, observing the intricate dance of human social interaction over caffeinated beverages. The rich aroma of roasted beans filled the air, mingling with the low hum of conversation and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. "Sarah, fancy running into you here," a familiar voice called out. Zara looked up to see Jake approaching, a warm smile on his face. She felt an unexpected flutter in her chest, a physiological response she made a mental note to analyze later. "Jake, hello," she replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "Would you like to join me?" As Jake sat down, Zara couldn't help but notice the dark circles under his eyes and the slight slump of his shoulders. "You look tired," she observed, then immediately wondered if that was too direct by human standards. Jake, however, just chuckled ruefully. "That obvious, huh? Yeah, I've been pulling some long nights at the lab. We're on the verge of a breakthrough, I think." Curiosity piqued. Zara leaned forward. "Oh, what kind of breakthrough?" Jake's eyes lit up with excitement, fatigue momentarily forgotten. "We're working on a new class of mood-altering compounds. The potential applications are incredible, treating depression, anxiety, PTSD. But lately, we've been exploring something even more ambitious." He lowered his voice, leaning in conspiratorially. "Have you ever heard of the love hormone, oxytocin?" Zara nodded, recalling her studies of human biology. "It's involved in social bonding and romantic attachment, right?" "Exactly," Jake said, clearly impressed. "Well, we're working on a synthetic compound that could potentially amplify its effects. Imagine being able to strengthen human connections, increase empathy, maybe even—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Sorry, I'm probably boring you with all this science talk." "Not at all," Zara assured him, genuinely fascinated. "It sounds like important work, but also potentially dangerous." Jake's expression sobered. "You're right to ask that. The ethical implications are complex. That's part of what's been keeping me up at night, to be honest. The potential for misuse is significant." As they continued to talk, Zara found herself drawn deeper into Jake's world. His passion for his work was infectious, and she admired the careful consideration he gave to its potential consequences. It was exactly the kind of human ingenuity and ethical reflection her mission aimed to study. Over the next few days, Zara couldn't stop thinking about Jake and his research. She found herself seeking out human scientific journals, marveling at the rapid advancements Earth's scientists were making across various fields. The more she learned, the more she questioned the assumption that humans weren't ready for interstellar contact. A week later, Jake invited Zara to visit his lab. "It's nothing official," he assured her over the phone. "Just thought you might be interested in seeing where the magic happens. Plus, I could use a fresh perspective on something." Zara agreed eagerly, perhaps too eagerly. As she approached the nondescript building housing Jake's lab, she felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. This was a valuable opportunity for her research, but it also meant getting closer to Jake. She couldn't deny the growing affection she felt for him, a complication she hadn't anticipated in her mission parameters. Jake met her at the entrance, looking more energized than she'd seen him in weeks. "Sarah, I'm so glad you could make it. Come on in." As they entered the lab, Zara was struck by the contrast between the sterile, white environment and the palpable energy of the researchers bustling about. Jake introduced her to his colleagues, explaining her background in anthropology. "We're always happy to have an outsider's perspective," one of the senior researchers commented. "Sometimes we get so focused on the how that we forget to consider the broader implications of our work." Jake led Zara to his workstation, pulling up complex molecular models on a large screen. "This is what we've been working on," he explained, pointing to a particular structure. "We think we found a way to create a more potent, longer-lasting version of oxytocin. The potential applications are incredible, but you're worried about how it might be used," Zara finished for him. Jake nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Exactly. In the right hands, this could help people form deeper connections, increase empathy, maybe even help heal societal divides. But in the wrong hands, it could be used to manipulate emotions, control people," Zara mused, her mind racing with the implications. As they discussed the ethical considerations, Zara found herself deeply impressed by the human's capacity for foresight and moral reasoning. It was so different from the often simplistic portrayals of humans in her pre-mission briefings. Lost in conversation, Neither of them noticed when Jake accidentally knocked over a vial on his desk. A fine mist sprayed into the air, and both of them inhaled sharply in surprise. "Oh no," Jake muttered, quickly moving to contain the spill. "Don't worry, it's just a saline solution we use for. Sarah, are you okay?" Zara blinked, suddenly feeling lightheaded. The lab seemed to spin around her, colors becoming more vivid, sounds more intense. She gripped the edge of the desk for support. I don't feel quite right," she managed to say. Jake's face swam in her vision, concern etched in his features. "Let's get you some air," he said, gently guiding her towards the exit. As they stepped outside, Zara took deep breaths, trying to clear her head. But instead of subsiding, the strange sensations intensified. She felt a warmth spreading through her body, her skin tingling with heightened sensitivity. "Jake," she said, her voice shaky, "what was in that vial?" Jake's eyes widened in realization and alarm. "Oh no, it wasn't saline. It was a prototype. The oxytocin amplifier. We must have breathed it in." Zara felt a moment of panic. An untested human compound, interacting with her alien physiology. This was precisely the kind of situation she had been warned to avoid. But before she could fully process the implications, another wave of sensation washed over her. The world seemed to glow with an inner light, and when she looked at Jake, she felt an overwhelming surge of something. Attraction, affection. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. "Jake," she whispered, reaching out to steady herself against him. "I think we might have a problem." As Jake looked back at her, his pupils dilating visibly, Zara realized that her mission had just become far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. The barriers between observer and subject, between human and alien, were about to be tested in ways neither of them were prepared for. The accidental dose. The world around Zara pulsed with an otherworldly vibrancy. Every color seemed more vivid, every sound more crisp, every sensation amplified tenfold. But most overwhelming of all was her awareness of Jake, his presence, his scent, the warmth of his skin where her hand rested on his arm. We should go back inside," Jake said, his voice strained. "Run some tests, figure out exactly what's happening." Zara nodded, trying to focus through the haze of unfamiliar sensations. As they re-entered the lab, she noticed the other researchers giving them curious glances. Did they look different? Could the others somehow sense the change in them? Jake led her to a quiet corner of the lab, away from prying eyes. "I'm going to take a blood sample," he explained, his movements careful and deliberate as he prepared a syringe. "We need to know how much of the compound we were exposed to." As the needle pierced her skin, Zara felt a moment of panic. Would her alien biology be revealed? But the hormone coursing through her system made it difficult to focus on anything beyond the immediate present, the intensity of her connection to Jake. Jake's brow furrowed as he examined the blood sample under a microscope. "This is strange," he muttered. "Your blood cells, Sarah, are you feeling okay?" Zara tried to formulate a response, but another wave of sensation washed over her. She felt a tingling across her skin, a faint shimmer that she recognized with alarm. Her chameleonic abilities were fluctuating, struggling to maintain her human appearance. "Jake," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to get out of here, now." Something in her tone must have conveyed the urgency, because Jake didn't hesitate. He quickly disposed of the blood sample and led her out of the lab, making hurried excuses to his colleagues. Once outside, Zara felt marginally better, the open air helping to clear her head slightly. But the effects of the compound were far from wearing off. If anything, they seemed to be intensifying. "My apartment," she said, fighting to maintain control. "It's not far. We can talk there." The journey was a blur of sensory overload. Zara was acutely aware of every brush against other pedestrians, every vibration from passing vehicles. And Jake, her awareness of him was almost painful in its intensity. She could sense his confusion, his concern, and underlying it all, a growing attraction that mirrored her own. Finally, mercifully, they reached her apartment. As soon as the door closed behind them, Zara let out a shuddering breath, releasing the tight control she'd been maintaining over her form. Her skin rippled, flashes of her true blue coloration showing through the human disguise. Jake stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock. "Sarah? What's happening to you?" Zara met his gaze, knowing that the moment of truth had arrived far sooner than she ever could have anticipated. "Jake," she said softly, "my name isn't Sarah, and I'm not human." Over the next hour, as the effects of the compound continued to course through their systems, Zara explained everything: her true identity, her mission, the reason for her presence on Earth. Jake listened with rapt attention, his scientific curiosity warring with disbelief and the intense emotional connection forged by the hormone. "This is incredible," Jake breathed, reaching out tentatively to touch Zara's now fully revealed alien skin. The contact sent shockwaves through both of them, the amplified oxytocin making every touch electric. "You're beautiful," he murmured, then blushed. "I mean, scientifically speaking, your biology is fascinating." Zara smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the hormone. "Thank you," she said. "Your world, your people, you're all so much more than we ever imagined. That's why I'm here, to learn, to understand." As they talked, the initial panic of the revelation faded, replaced by a deepening connection. Jake shared his own story, his passion for science, his hopes of using his work to make the world better, his fears about the potential misuse of his discoveries. Zara found herself opening up in turn, sharing insights about her own culture and the wonders of the cosmos that humans had yet to discover. But as the hours passed, it became clear that the effects of the compound were not wearing off. If anything, they seemed to be intensifying, particularly for Zara. Her alien physiology was reacting to the hormone in unpredictable ways. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling slightly, I think I'm producing pheromones, powerful ones." Jake nodded, his pupils dilated, sweat beading on his brow. "I can tell. It's getting harder to think clearly. The attraction, the connection, it's overwhelming." Zara could feel it too, an almost magnetic pull between them, a desire for closeness that went beyond the physical. But underneath the hormone-induced haze, a part of her mind was racing, trying to understand the implications. "This could be dangerous," she said, forcing herself to focus. "If I'm producing pheromones that affect humans this strongly, Jake, we need to find a way to counteract this quickly." Jake took a deep breath, visibly struggling to concentrate. "You're right. We should head back to the lab, run more tests. But Zara..." He paused, reaching out to take her hand. "Whatever happens, I want you to know, this connection between us, it's not just the hormone. I felt drawn to you from the moment we met." Zara felt a surge of emotion, joy, fear, excitement, all mixed together. "I feel the same," she admitted. "But right now, we need to focus on fixing this. The fate of your world, the potential for contact between our species, it all hangs in the balance." As they prepared to leave the apartment, both of them knowing they were stepping into uncharted territory, Zara couldn't help but marvel at the turn of events. She had come to Earth to observe, to study from a safe distance. Instead, she found herself in the middle of a situation that could change everything, for her, for Jake, for both their worlds. The accidental dose had set in motion a chain of events that would test the limits of science, ethics, and the very nature of human-alien relations. As Zara and Jake stepped out into the night, they knew they were embarking on the most important journey of their lives, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about themselves, each other, and the universe they shared. Chaos unleashed. As Zara and Jake stepped out of the apartment building, the full impact of Zara's pheromones became immediately apparent. Passers-by on the street stopped in their tracks, their heads turning in unison towards the alien-human pair. Eyes widened, nostrils flared, and a palpable tension filled the air. "This is worse than I thought," Jake muttered, instinctively moving closer to Zara in a protective gesture. "We need to get to the lab fast." They set off at a brisk pace, but their progress was continually impeded. People were drawn to Zara like moths to a flame, their faces a mix of confusion and desire. Some reached out to touch her, others called out with declarations of sudden passionate love. Zara's alien biology, supercharged by the experimental compound, was broadcasting an irresistible signal of attraction and connection. It transcended gender, age, and even species. Pigeons cooed and fluttered around her feet. Stray cats emerged from alleys to rub against her legs. "Jake," Zara said, her voice tight with worry, "this is getting out of hand. We're causing a disturbance. What if the authorities get involved?" As if on cue, the wail of police sirens split the air. "We can't let them catch us," Jake said firmly. "Who knows what they'd do if they discovered you're an alien? We need a plan B." Thinking quickly, Jake led Zara down a side street and into the service entrance of a large department store. The employees inside were immediately affected by Zara's pheromones, but Jake used the momentary confusion to grab some clothes off a rack. "Put these on," he said, handing Zara a hooded sweatshirt and sunglasses. "It won't stop the pheromones, but it might make you less recognizable." Disguised as best they could, they slipped out onto a busier street, trying to blend with the crowd. But the chaos continued to follow them. People were beginning to fight over who could get closer to Zara, declarations of love turning into jealous arguments. "This is like something out of a comic book," Jake said, half in awe and half in terror. "Your pheromones are affecting people's behavior on a massive scale. If this spreads—" Zara nodded grimly. "It could destabilize your entire society." "Jake, I never meant for this to happen. My mission was supposed to be peaceful, observational." "I know," Jake reassured her. "This isn't your fault. It's the compound. We'll fix this, I promise." As they navigated the increasingly chaotic streets, Zara's keen alien senses picked up on something else, a high-pitched frequency that seemed to be following them. "Jake," she whispered, "I think we're being tracked." Jake's face paled. "The lab. They must have realized something went wrong with the compound. They're looking for us." Their situation was growing more desperate by the minute. The effects of Zara's pheromones were spreading further, causing traffic accidents as drivers became distracted, leading to scuffles and even riots as people fought to get closer to the source of the irresistible attraction. Suddenly, a sleek black van screeched to a halt beside them. The door slid open, revealing a team of people in hazmat suits. "Inside now," a muffled voice commanded. Jake and Zara exchanged a look. They had no way of knowing if these people were friend or foe, but with the police closing in and the city descending into chaos around them, they had little choice. As soon as they were inside, the van took off, weaving through the turbulent streets. One of the hazmat-suited figures approached them with a device that looked like a cross between a fire extinguisher and a sci-fi ray gun. "This might help," the figure said, before spraying both Jake and Zara with a fine, cool mist. Almost immediately, Zara felt a change. The overwhelming intensity of her senses began to dim, and she could feel her pheromone production slowing. "Who are you?" Jake demanded. "Where are you taking us?" The figure removed their helmet, revealing a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "Dr. Eleanor Vaughn," she introduced herself. "I'm the head of a secret government task force dedicated to identifying and containing potential biochemical threats. Your little experiment set off every alarm we have." Zara and Jake shared a worried look. This was exactly the kind of attention they had been hoping to avoid. "Don't worry," Dr. Vaughn continued, noticing their concern. "We're not here to harm you or to expose your unique situation." She looked pointedly at Zara. "We're here to help contain this incident before it spirals even further out of control." As the van sped through the city, Dr. Vaughn explained that they were headed to a secure facility where they could work on neutralizing the effects of the compound and Zara's pheromones. But Zara's worries were far from assuaged. "What about my people?" she asked. If they detect this disturbance, they might intervene. The consequences of premature contact between our species could be disastrous. Dr. Vaughn's expression turned grave. Then we'd better work fast. The fate of human-alien relations may well rest in our hands. As the van arrived at a nondescript building on the outskirts of the city, Zara and Jake knew they were stepping into a new phase of their adventure. The accidental dose had set off a chain reaction that now threatened not just their lives, but the delicate balance between two worlds. Inside the facility, a team of Earth's brightest scientists awaited them, ready to tackle the unprecedented challenge. As Zara looked around at the determined faces, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this incident, chaotic as it was, could lead to something positive, a bridging of their two species through shared scientific endeavor. But as alarms began to blare and a technician rushed in with news of unidentified objects entering Earth's atmosphere, Zara realized that the real challenges were only just beginning. The clock was ticking, and the future of both their worlds hung in the balance. Race against time. The secure facility buzzed with frantic energy as scientists, government officials, and military personnel rushed to address the escalating crisis. Zara and Jake found themselves at the center of it all, working alongside Dr. Vaughn and her team to unravel the complex effects of the experimental compound. In one corner of the lab, Jake pored over molecular models, his fingers flying across holographic displays as he sought to understand how the oxytocin amplifier had interacted with Zara's alien biology. Across the room, Zara submitted to a battery of tests, her unique physiology providing both challenges and potential breakthroughs for the human scientists. The compound has bonded with receptors in Zara's endocrine system, Jake announced, fatigue evident in his voice. It's causing her to produce a complex cocktail of pheromones, some similar to human ones, others completely alien. Dr. Vaughn nodded grimly. And those pheromones are having a cascading effect on human neurochemistry. The reports from the city are getting worse. Riots, mass hysteria, people abandoning their jobs and families to search for the source of love. If we don't find a way to neutralize this soon. She was interrupted by another blaring alarm. A young lieutenant burst into the room, his face pale. Dr. Vaughn, we've got multiple unidentified objects entering the mesosphere. They're not following any known flight patterns, and they're not responding to hails. Zara's heart sank. It's my people, she said quietly. They must have detected the disturbance. They're coming to investigate, and possibly to extract me. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first official contact with an alien species was about to happen under the worst possible circumstances, with society in chaos and Zara's pheromones still influencing human behavior on a massive scale. We need more time, Jake said, determination etched on his face. Zara, is there any way you can communicate with your ship? Explain the situation. Zara shook her head. My communication device was damaged when we were exposed to the compound. Even if it wasn't, I'm not sure they'd listen. Our protocols for situations like this are very strict. Dr. Vaughn's expression hardened. Then we work with what we've got. Jake, you and the biochem team focus on developing an aerosol antidote to neutralize the pheromones. Zara, we need everything you can tell us about your species' first contact protocols. And someone get me the president. We need to prepare for every possible scenario. As the hours ticked by, the tension in the facility ratcheted up to nearly unbearable levels. News feeds showed scenes of growing chaos in major cities around the world as Zara's pheromones spread through air currents and human contact. Governments struggled to maintain order, and wild theories about the cause of the love plague proliferated online. In the skies above, the alien ships drew ever closer, their intentions unknown. Jake worked tirelessly, fueled by a mixture of scientific curiosity, adrenaline, and his growing feelings for Zara. Despite the influence of the pheromones, he knew that his connection with her went beyond mere chemistry. As he pieced together the puzzle of the compound's effects, he found himself marveling at the complexity of Zara's alien biology and the unexpected similarities to human physiology. Zara, for her part, felt torn between worlds. Her mission to observe humanity had turned into active participation in a potential turning point for both species. As she shared what she could about her people's technology and culture, she realized that her perspective on humans had fundamentally changed. Their resourcefulness, their passion, their ability to come together in a crisis, it all pointed to a species ready for the stars, despite what her superiors might think. Just as Jake was putting the finishing touches on a promising antidote formula, a deafening rumble shook the facility. On the monitors, they watched as a massive ship, sleek and otherworldly, descended from the clouds to hover over the heart of the city. "They're here," Zara whispered, a mix of relief and apprehension in her voice. Suddenly, every screen in the facility lit up with the same image, a stern-faced alien that Zara recognized as Admiral Zex, her mission commander. His voice boomed through speakers in a language no human had ever heard before, but which Zara quickly translated. "People of Earth, we come in response to a grave disturbance. One of our own has violated our prime directive of non-interference. We demand her immediate return and compliance with our quarantine protocols. Failure to comply will result in more direct intervention." The room erupted in a flurry of activity. Military officials argued for a show of force, scientists pleaded for more time, and government agents scrambled to draft a response. But Zara's eyes met Jake's across the chaos, and in that moment, they both knew what had to be done. "We need to go out there," Jake said, grabbing the vial of freshly synthesized antidote. "Together, it's the only way to prevent a disaster." Dr. Vaughn overheard and turned to them, her expression a mix of fear and grudging admiration. "You realize what you're risking. If that antidote doesn't work, if we can't convince your people to stand down." Zara straightened, a newfound determination in her stance. "Then at least we'll have tried. This is bigger than me, bigger than any one species. This could be the moment that changes everything, for better or worse." As alarms blared and the facility scrambled to respond to the alien ultimatum, Zara and Jake prepared to step out into the unknown. The antidote, the fate of two worlds, and the future of interstellar relations rested in their hands. With one last shared look of determination, they pushed open the doors and stepped out to face whatever came next, together. Bridge between worlds. The world held its breath as Zara and Jake emerged from the facility, facing the enormous alien ship hovering above the city. The streets were eerily quiet, the chaos of earlier subdued by a mixture of awe and fear at the otherworldly presence. Jake clutched the vial of antidote tightly, his other hand intertwined with Zara's. Despite the gravity of the situation, he couldn't help but marvel at the sight before him, irrefutable proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. A beam of shimmering light shot down from the ship, and a figure began to descend. Admiral Zex, now clad in an environmental suit, touched down on the pavement before them. His stern gaze swept over the scene, lingering on Zara and Jake's joined hands. "Researcher Zara," he said, his voice translating through an unseen device, "you have violated our most sacred protocols. The damage you have caused to this world's natural development is incalculable. You will return with us immediately for judgment." Zara stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "Admiral, with all due respect, I cannot comply. What's happened here is not a disaster, it's an opportunity. An opportunity for both our peoples to learn, to grow, to bridge the gap between our worlds." Jake nodded, adding his voice to hers. "Sir, I'm Dr. Jake Reeves. I'm partly responsible for what's happened here, but I've also seen firsthand the incredible potential that exists when our species work together. Please give us a chance to explain." Admiral Zek's expression remained impassive, but a flicker of curiosity passed through his eyes. "You have one standard unit to make your case before we initiate quarantine procedures." Taking a deep breath, Jake and Zara launched into their explanation. They detailed the accidental exposure, the unforeseen reaction with Zara's biology, and the subsequent chaos. But they also spoke of the breakthroughs they'd made, the deep connections forged in crisis, and the antidote they developed together. As they spoke, Dr. Vaughan approached cautiously, flanked by a team of scientists and government officials. She added her voice to theirs, explaining how the incident had pushed human science forward by decades, if not centuries. "We stand on the brink of a new era," Dr. Vaughan said passionately. "One where our species could learn from each other, explore the cosmos together. Surely that's worth more than rigid adherence to protocol." Admiral Zex remained silent for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "Your arguments are compelling. However, the release of alien pheromones into your population remains a critical issue. How do you propose to address this?" Jake held up the vial of antidote. "We've developed this. It should neutralize the effects of the pheromones and prevent further spread. With your advanced technology, we could distribute it globally within hours." A tense silence fell as Admiral Zex considered their words. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Finally, the alien leader nodded. "Very well. We will assist in the distribution of your antidote, but this is merely the beginning. There is much to discuss regarding the future of our species' interactions." As if a great weight had been lifted, cheers erupted from the assembled humans. Jake and Zara embraced, their joy and relief palpable. Over the next few days, a flurry of activity engulfed the globe. The antidote was distributed with remarkable efficiency, combining human and alien technologies. As the pheromone-induced hysteria subsided, the world began to grapple with the new reality of confirmed extraterrestrial life. Zara and Jake found themselves at the center of it all, serving as bridges between their two species. They testified before world leaders, gave interviews to awestruck journalists, and worked tirelessly to foster understanding and cooperation. Months passed, and the initial shock gave way to a new era of human advancement. The exchange of knowledge and technology with Zara's people accelerated human progress in medicine, energy production, and space exploration. In return, the aliens found themselves captivated by human art, music, and philosophy. As for Zara and Jake, their bond only grew stronger. Their unique connection, born of crisis and strengthened by shared purpose, blossomed into something deep and lasting. They became symbols of what was possible when two worlds came together, not just scientifically, but emotionally as well. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of the newly established Interstellar Cultural Exchange Center, watching ships from a dozen alien worlds drift peacefully in Earth's orbit, Jake turned to Zara with a smile. "You know," he said, "when I invited you to my lab all those months ago, I never imagined it would lead to this." Zara laughed, her alien features softened by the warm evening light. "The best scientific discoveries are often unexpected, but I wouldn't change a thing." As they gazed up at the stars, now filled with new possibilities and promise, they knew that their accidental dose of passion had changed not just their lives, but the course of history itself. The bridge between worlds had been built, and the future stretched out before them, vast and bright with potential. In labs and universities across the globe, humans and aliens worked side by side, tackling the universe's greatest mysteries. And it all started with an unlikely pair, an alien researcher and a human scientist, who proved that love, understanding, and the pursuit of knowledge could transcend the boundaries of worlds. The story of Zara and Jake would be told for generations to come, a testament to the power of connection, the importance of embracing the unknown, and the incredible things that can happen when two species reach out across the stars and find not just intelligent life, but kindred spirits.